Let's get right into it. Number 10. Forgotten food that shouldn't exist. There's something uniquely unsettling about opening a metal locker in a long-abandoned survival shelter and finding food. Not just any food that looks like it has seen several presidential administrations come and go, yet somehow still maintains the confidence of something technically edible. There's always a can of beans with a label that has melted into the metal, or a brick of hardtack that could probably break a cinder block. Survivalists love things that last forever, but apparently forever is a lot longer than they expected. And the worst part, these things don't rot, they evolve. Powdered eggs turn into a yellow concrete mix. Peanut butter separates into layers like geological sediment, and freeze-dried beef cubes. They don't decompose, they just become sharper, meaner, like they're waiting for a jaw to ruin. Scientists could probably carbon date some of these meals and get results that say older than the written alphabet. Chemically speaking, these foods survive because they've been dehydrated, pressurized, preserved, and essentially bullied by science into becoming immortal. Microbes simply take one look, shrug, and leave for a nicer neighborhood. But that doesn't make it better. Imagine the emotional journey of a cockroach opening a shelter and thinking, "Oh, no thanks, I'll just starve." People who explore abandoned bunkers often report seeing mystery rations, plain metal cans with no markings at all. That's not food, that's a dare. If an item's identity has been erased by time, there's no scenario where eating it leads to a fun afternoon. In the end, nothing screams disturbing like a can of soup that has outlived the person who stored it, and the punchline that can is still more emotionally stable than most people during the apocalypse. Number 9. Notes from someone who really tried. There's something haunting about finding someone's handwriting in a place that hasn't been touched for decades. Scraps of paper, notebook margins, even scribbles on the wall, little reminders that a real human tried, at some point, to outsmart the end of the world. The notes always start practical inventory lists, dates, reminders to ration water. But the deeper you look, the more things shift from organized survivalist to diary of a person steadily losing faith in canned chili. Psychologically, this is gold. Isolation does strange things. Humans need social contact the way plants need sunlight without it. The brain starts improvising. People in survival situations begin writing more, even if no one will ever read it, because the act of writing feels like having a conversation where nobody talks back or interrupts with, "well, actually." And then the notes get personal. There's always a point where the writer stops tracking supplies and starts confessing secrets they probably never said aloud. The walls of a bunker become an accidental therapist. Some leave hopeful messages for future discoverers, because humans love the idea of legacy, even if that legacy is "Dear stranger, I named the rats. Please feed Gerald." What makes these notes truly disturbing isn't the content, it's the silence they leave behind. The questions. Did this person leave voluntarily? Did they lose hope? Or did they follow Gerald out a vent and never come back? You'll never know. The punchline. Even in a bunker designed to survive nuclear winter, the thing that breaks down first is always the human optimism. Number 8. Water you should absolutely not drink. Every abandoned shelter has a water situation, and none of the situations are good. You might find a giant metal drum filled with a liquid that technically was water when humans still thought dial-up internet was impressive. But now it's a haunted swimming pool for bacteria that haven't been discovered yet. The smell alone hits you like a slap from Poseidon. Water in sealed containers goes stale after months. Imagine decades. Oxygen sneaks in, minerals separate, and microorganisms throw a rave. Even if it looks clear, that's usually because everything inside has already died and sunk to the bottom. Crystal clear is not a compliment here, it's a warning. Then you've got the improvised filtration systems, homemade charcoal filters that no longer filter anything, plastic tubes that have fossilized, and buckets placed under drips that absolutely, without question, contain more rust than hydration. The water sometimes stains the walls on its way down, leaving ghostly mineral streaks that basically say, "Hello visitor, please do not touch me." From a survival standpoint, this water is like a pop quiz where every answer choice is wrong, but one of them actively punches you. Dehydration is bad, but drinking apocalypse soup is worse. Explorers who know what they're doing don't go near it. Explorers who don't usually learn very quickly. And the punchline. The only things thriving in that water are organisms so tough they could probably file taxes. Number 7. The bunk beds you would never sleep in. There's abandoned furniture, and then there are abandoned bunker bunk bed structures that somehow look both over-engineered and one sneeze away from collapse. The mattresses are always that military-issue foam that was already uncomfortable back when it was new, and now it has fossilized into a topographical map of despair. Touch it and you'll hear a crunch that suggests it's about 40% dust, 30% mildew, and 30% unidentifiable existential dread. These beds tell stories without saying a word. One mattress might have a perfect oval depression, as if its last occupant lay down, sighed, and simply evaporated out of embarrassment. Another bed has sheets so stiff they could probably be used as building materials. And let's not even talk about the pillows objects that have witnessed too much, absorbed too much, and should have been declared biohazards around the time disco died. From a psychological point of view, a bed is supposed to mean safety, comfort, resetting your brain after a long day of being a functional human. But in a survival shelter, these beds signal something else entirely, the idea that rest was rationed, comfort was optional, and sleep probably came with a side of paranoia. Humans aren't meant to sleep underground with zero sunlight. The brain gets confused, circadian rhythms wig out, and dreams start auditioning creative horrors. And the creepy part, sometimes explorers find these beds perfectly made, as if someone prepared everything and then left before lying down. It's the survivalist version of a ghostly turn-down service. The punchline. These beds have held up better than most modern relationships, and they're still not worth lying on. Number 6. The emergency weapons nobody should have made. Ah yes, the homegrown apocalypse arsenal. Step into any long-forgotten bunker and you'll almost always discover weapons that scream, "I did not think this through." Homemade spears, sawed-off broom handles with kitchen knives taped to the end, slingshots made from underwear elastic, a baseball bat with nails hammered into it at confusing angles, like someone tried to reinvent medieval warfare using only frustration. Survival shelters often belong to people who were really into the idea of self-reliance, which means they took the DIY part too seriously. Psychology calls this resource substitution when you don't have the correct tool. Your brain says, let's make something weird and dangerous instead. Humans love turning panic into arts and crafts. The real disturbing moment comes when you realize some of these weapons weren't made out of fear of zombies or nuclear mutants. They were made because isolation amplifies threats that don't exist. When you sit alone underground for weeks, your brain starts imagining dangers lurking just beyond the door. Suddenly, that sharpened metal chair leg seems like a brilliant idea. And sometimes, the weapons are used, not fatally just enough dents in the walls, slices in the furniture, or shattered objects to suggest someone had a very bad night fueled by boredom or cabin fever. A shelter becomes a diary of survival, but also a diary of escalating weird decisions. The punchline. Nothing says prepared for the apocalypse like a weapon that would lose in a fight against a determined squirrel. Number 5. Personal items left behind on purpose. This is where things shift from creepy to, oh no. Abandoned shelters usually have personal belongings scattered around a pair of glasses folded neatly beside a bed, a child's toy resting on a shelf, a half-finished crossword puzzle with only the easy words filled in. These things weren't dropped, they were placed, intentionally. That's what makes them disturbing. Humans rarely leave behind the objects that matter to them unless they're planning to return, or unless they couldn't. Psychologists call these objects identity anchors, things that hold emotional weight and help us feel stable. In an underground shelter, those anchors become even more important because there's no sunlight, no routine, no normalcy. A single photo or souvenir becomes the entire emotional support system. So when explorers find these items perfectly arranged, untouched by time, it often means someone made a choice either to leave quickly or to give up slowly. A wedding ring left on a table, a journal with one last sentence, shoes placed side by side instead of scattered. These are not random, they are messages from people who didn't know anyone would read them. What makes it disturbing is the unfinished nature of it all. A deck of cards mid-shuffle, a chessboard frozen mid-game, a book marked halfway through as if the reader thought, I'll finish this after the world stops ending. There's a whole story here, but only the last page remains. The punchline, in the apocalypse, nostalgia is heavier than any canned food, and it's the first thing people abandon. Number 4. The air systems that begged for mercy. Ventilation in survival shelters is supposed to be the lifeline, the heroic machine that keeps you from slowly transforming into a basement mushroom. But wander into an abandoned shelter and you'll find air systems that look like they've survived their own apocalypse, pipes twisted like they tried to escape, filters blackened beyond recognition, fans clogged with dust thick enough to qualify as insulation. From a scientific standpoint, stale air is no joke. Without proper ventilation, carbon dioxide creeps up, humidity spikes, and you start breathing in a cocktail of mold spores that probably have union representation by now. The original survivalists installed these systems believing they would run smoothly forever. Instead, they now resemble the lungs of a Victorian chimney sweep. There's always that one hand crank ventilation system you have to turn manually. Explorers love testing these things, just to feel them resist like a haunted gym machine. Every crank sounds like a ghost sighing. And the worst part, sometimes there are tally marks scratched into the wall behind it, evidence that someone used it religiously, maybe hourly, just to keep the air breathable. You can almost picture them, counting rotations, trying not to panic. The psychological horror here is subtle but brutal. These shelters were built to keep people alive, but the air system reminds you how fragile that promise was. When the vents go bad, it's not dramatic, it's quiet, slow, and claustrophobic. The punchline, the ventilation lasted longer than the optimism of the people who depended on it. Number 3, the messages carved where you shouldn't look. Walls in survival shelters are basically emotionally charged notebooks, scratch marks, carvings, etched initials, little relics of boredom, fear, or a desperate need to leave a mark. But the worst are the messages carved in weird places under the beds, behind shelves, inside cupboards. If someone hides a message where only the future will find it, that's never a good sign. Sometimes it's simple stuff like names, dates, or symbols that look like a bored teenager was involved, but more often, it's unsettling phrases, things like "still here," or "don't trust the quiet," or "it comes back at night." The ambiguity is what gets you. Was this person scared of something real? Or did isolation turn shadows into villains? Psychologically, carving messages is a coping mechanism. When people feel powerless, they leave marks as proof they existed, something the darkness can't erase. In a bunker where time has no meaning, carving becomes a ritual, a way to anchor sanity. But rituals can get weird fast, especially when sleep deprivation and underground living team up to make your brain deeply creative in the wrong ways. And then there are the unfinished carvings, the letters that stop suddenly, the sentences that break off midway. Those are the ones that stick with explorers. Did the writer get interrupted? Did they change their mind? Did they leave? Did something else happen? The punchline: nothing says pleasant afternoon adventure like reading a message that makes you regret having a flashlight. Number 2, the one door that shouldn't be open. Every abandoned shelter has that door, the one that shouldn't be open, but is. It might be a heavy steel hatch cracked just enough to make your imagination sprint, or a supply room door swinging gently when there's no draft. Doors in bunkers are designed for security. They're thick, loud, and stubborn. When one is ajar, it means something changed after the last person left. Sometimes it leads to a storage room with nothing but dust and a broken chair. Other times, it opens to a small chamber that looks untouched, maybe even clean, as if someone was there more recently than the rest of the shelter suggests. That's the moment when explorers collectively decide they're suddenly very interested in the structural integrity of the nearest exit. From a psychological angle, doors represent thresholds, safety on one side, uncertainty on the other. An unexpected open door triggers the same fear humans have had since caves were fashionable. Who or what moved? This logic says it might have been gravity or shifting air pressure. Instinct says it was absolutely not gravity. Thank you very much. And the real kicker, sometimes the hinges show fresh scraping, or footprints in dust lead toward the door but not away from it. Your brain tries to rationalize, but all it can come up with is, cool, time to leave forever. The punchline: an open door in a bunker is like a cliffhanger in a horror movie, except you're standing in it. Number 1, the room that wasn't on the blueprint. Every abandoned survival shelter eventually reveals its final boss, a room no one expected, no one mentioned, and absolutely no one wants to be the one to open. It might be behind a panel, a narrow passage, or a bolted door that looks suspiciously newer than everything around it. and when explorers finally push inside, the air feels heavier as if the room has been holding its breath for decades. These hidden rooms almost never contain anything normal. Sometimes there's a single chair placed dead center, the universal symbol for nope. Sometimes there are shelves of supplies meticulously organized long after the rest of the shelter went feral. Occasionally there's a sleeping area that looks recent, like someone used it, then vanished without signing the guest book. Explorers report finding warm objects, fresh dust disturbances, even footprints that don't match their own. Nothing dramatic, just enough detail to make your fight or flight instinct unplug your higher brain and sprint for the exit. Psychologically, this is the jackpot of unease. Humans are creatures of pattern and control. We feel safe when things make sense. A hidden room breaks that sense instantly. It whispers the worst question a place like this can ask: if this exists, what else does? And because it's a survival shelter, the mind immediately spins scenarios: another occupant, a secret stash, a failed experiment, or the remnants of someone who didn't want to be found. Even an empty room feels full, because emptiness doesn't explain how it stayed hidden. And then there are the personal touches: a freshly sharpened pencil, a footprint with sharp edges, a curtain gently swaying with no airflow at all. These details don't confirm anything, they just refuse to rule anything out. That's the most disturbing part. The room suggests a story, but never tells it. You leave with more questions than you came with, and none of them have pleasant answers. The punchline: finding a secret room in an old bunker isn't discovering history, it's being politely asked to leave by the building itself. That's all for today. I'll be making similar videos in the future. Subscribe to see them.